This week on Alien Theorists Theorizing.
Well, and when we say they started a relationship with the Hells Angels, it was not William at all. Like, William is still...
Like 1978 to 2001, there were 65 women that would just up and disappear in the downtown east side of Vancouver.
And like, he would testify to that, which then finally allows the RCMP and the Vancouver police to obtain a search warrant for the guns.
There was a point in time where his brother randomly kicked him off the property. Was like, nah, get the fuck out of here. And it makes me wonder, like, did the brother walk in and find out what he was doing?
Robert Pickton.
Welcome to Alien Theorists Theorizing, Case File 297. Willy Pickton and the what did we say it was going to be?
Malice at Willy P's Piggy Palace. Like, what are we gonna? Don't eat the meat pies.
Yeah. Willy picked and the meat pies.
Listen, like this.
I'm Brady.
And I'm Andrew. This case file. This hits closer to home than any of the fucking other case files I think we've ever touched on. Hey, like literally.
Yeah, I know.
In our this is our generation.
Very specific.
Yeah, well, it's like literally.
Yeah.
This took place 4 hours away from where we grew up.
And it also shaped the way we speak because there was lingo that only people in and around this area fucking knew about.
Yeah.
That if you said anywhere else, they would have no idea.
Yeah. So if something's extremely weird, disgusting, or just bizarre, you'd say that's fucking picked, man. That's picked.
Yeah, that's picked. And that was in direct reference to Robert William Pickton. If you don't know who that is, that he's also known as the pig farm killer, one of Canada's most notorious serial killers. And you're probably asking yourself, why is it just the two people on this podcast today that are the least qualified to run a podcast on their own? That's because the streak, baby. When we talk about the streak, we have held a weekly show straight for, I think, five years or more or longer.
I don't think I've done anything for 5 years.
Missed.
Other than this.
We have not missed a week. Every fucking week, a new episode comes out. We've been through births of children, holidays, deaths, Christmases, fucking New Year, holiday, whatever. We've always maintained the streak. And this week was the closest we've come in a long time to the streak ending. Because there were some family emergencies on Monday when we normally record these things. And then just timing with three people. Zell's doing audio stuff during the day. I usually had 9 to 5. Andrew's rotating schedule. It did not look like it was going to happen, but me and Andrew carved up some time to make it happen today. Now, the other thing is we've decided to do this. We're kind of straying away from, it is a little bit of murder month because Dan's not here. It's a little bit spooky. This one is a little bit conspiracy, but if you've been following the show for a while, me and Andrew have a soft spot in our hearts for fucking serial
fucked up
killers.
spot, a picked spot.
Yeah, we love talking serial killers. We're both huge fans of serial killers' works.
I don't know that. I wouldn't say that.
No, we both are big true crime fans. I always like that when you kind of refer to it that way. You're like, yeah, I'm a big fan of all their works. Yeah. That's what you're listening to when you listen to that stuff. Now, if you're listening to this and you're like, hey, you know what? I kind of like these two idiots. I like kind of how they talk about, take the lighter side of these true crime things because they can be pretty dark, pretty heavy. We actually do a fucking show on our Patreon called Daddies and Baddies. It's just me and Andrew, and we talk every week. One of us brings every week, every episode, one of us brings a different serial killer we want to talk to. We try to keep it 35, 40 minutes light because we know those kind of things can get heavy in a hurry. So if you're into this and you want more, we have currently 4 episodes on our patreon.com/Alien Theorist podcast. But you know what? We thought we'd kind of bring you a little special ATT / Daddies and Baddies today. That's the way it happened.
Yeah. I mean, this one, I think we're almost overqualified to talk about this one, which is bizarre. Right? Like we did this, like I was touching on earlier, like this hits super close to home. Like this guy's hunting ground was that was my like office space for about 4.5 years when I was working in Vancouver, right? Like I directly worked in the downtown east side of Vancouver. And I saw the warning posters of, David Pickton and everything like that. So it's, it was really interesting to dive into this. And I don't know about you, but I actually ended up learning a bunch that I didn't know. Like,
I mean, I knew this case pretty well before, but just kind of like, I kind of went down some paths that I didn't look into. I didn't really know. And I was interesting. And those, this isn't going to be one of those spoiler episodes where we kind of lead you on and then you find out at the end what's going on. William Pickton was tried and convicted of 6 counts of murder. But he actually was charged with 26 counts of murder, and he's confessed
49
to upwards of 49 victims. So basically what he used to do is, and I think to give some context to this is, if you haven't heard of the downtown east side in Vancouver, it's always been bad. It's always...
Well, let's not say it's always been bad. It's like there is kind of like a jump off moment for the downtown east side. It's when they closed Riverview Hospital, which was basically a mental asylum. Believe it or not, it was in Coquitlam. When they closed that down, these people had nowhere really to go. So they, migrated to the downtown east side of Vancouver. And that's really like the jump off spot for the homelessness epidemic in that area.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, so it's always, there now today, as we record this, it's 100 times, the problem is 100 times worse than it was then. I remember back then when you used to, as we were young men and in the early 2000s, late 2000s, when we would drive there, you'd kind of always do a little detour down the downtown east side.
Lock the fucking doors and go for a little rip.
You'd lock the doors and you take a peek, and it was like a hard 3 or 4 blocks, right? That was it. Where it was these people, homeless people down on the luck, were just kind of living on the sidewalks and in that area back then. And like now, it's everywhere. Like it's literally
the entire downtown east side of Vancouver.
Down there. And one of the craziest things about this case to me is that like BC is no stranger to like missing women. Like it's a really, especially Indigenous women, like missing and murdered Indigenous women, huge issue in British Columbia.
Well, during this time period where they believe Robert Pickton could have started being active to when he was arrested. So like 1978 to 2001, there were 65 women that would just up and disappear in the downtown east side of Vancouver. 65.
Yeah.
And supposedly he's claimed 49 of them.
Yeah.
Which is wild. Actually, there's no supposedly. We got video of him actually stating that he was upset that they caught him because he was at 49 and he wanted to get to 50.
Yeah, he wanted to round it to 50.
Like this is literally the largest serial killer investigation in Canadian history. Like Pickton's farm, after they excavated, that was the largest crime scene in Canadian history. They literally brought in archaeologists to go through this. But like, do you want to jump into who Pickton was as a person and get to maybe why he was?
Yeah.
All right. So Robert William Pickton, born 1949, was raised on a family-operated pig farm in Port Coquitlam, British Columbia. So I think it's extremely important to understand. So yeah, like this area, a lot of agricultural, lots of farmers, everything like that. And he was raised on a pig farm. This was not your standard family pig farm. Like these people, they basically like had an open door policy where these pigs roamed inside and outside of their house.
Like just tracking in fucking mud,
shit,
dirt, whatever.
They didn't have furniture. right? They didn't have anything. They had no furniture or anything like that. These pigs freely came and went as they want. Now, Willy was really close to his mom, Louise, who was a fucking character and a half. So just to paint a picture for you, this woman, by her early 40s, completely bald, no teeth, and a beard. Full beard, like full goatee. Okay, so an interesting woman. Father didn't really play a big part in Willy's life other than, the odd abuse here and there, physical abuse, which, obviously.
Yeah, if you like in the back of your mind, you're hearing the fucking banjos starting, you're not
No,
wrong.
100%. So Louise, Willy was the middle kid. He had a older sister, a younger brother. Louise ran the farm and kind of ran the kids, and she was a hard woman. She supervised the kids, expecting them to put in long hours, slopping the pigs and looking after the animals. Slopping the pigs means feeding them, by the way, not washing them. I thought it meant like maybe scrubbing the pigs down or anyways.
No, that's pig slop. Buddy.
So these kids were working even like it didn't matter, school days, whatever. These kids would come home from school to slop the pigs and go back covered head to toe in dirt and fucking shit.
And then it's like, and then you're going into your house, which is covered in fucking dirt and shit. So it's like
they didn't know any different.
You're just
these kids were
dirty.
filthy 24/7. They'd go to school, they'd get picked on, they'd get bullied. Nobody wanted to be around them. Willy started some really bizarre habits as a little kid. Anytime he'd deal with any type of like stressful situations, it was reported that he would run and hide and crawl into a gutted carcass of a fucking pig. And he would hide on the inside.
Pre-Star Wars. This is pre-Star Wars.
This is probably where they get the idea.
Right? So like,
no warmer place.
Like that was the thing. Like, imagine like when you didn't want to do chores, and you like hide under your bed. You're just like, I'm gonna just slide into this old rotted pig.
Oh man. So
like messed up stuff.
So she often sent these kids to school in unwashed, dirty clothing, reeking of manure, and earning the nickname Stinky Piggy Brothers. Pickton was strongly attached to his mother and had little interaction with his abusive father. At the age of 12, Pickton saved up all his money and purchased a calf that he was going to raise himself, take care of. And, considering the fact that he was really, unliked at school, he didn't really have a lot of friends. He built this really good relationship with his calf.
It's like if you had a
family dog.
Your kid was having a hard time and you get them a dog to raise, and you're like, this will be your friend.
This calf was very beloved to him. It was, his best friend. He came home from school 2 weeks later and searched the house and the farm, couldn't find his calf. Went up to his mom and said, "Mom, like, where the fuck is my calf? Like, what's going on?" Obviously distraught. His mom just looked at him casually and said, "Well, go look in the barn." So Willy goes and opens the fucking barn door and finds his calf skinned and hanging.
Yeah.
So.
And it was like a comical thing. Everyone kind of thought it was funny. Like
right. And now
your pants.
Yeah, like it's fucking right. So fucking traumatic. Baby. And this is something that Willy like dwelled on into his adult years. Like he would literally tell anybody he could. Like he'd be sitting at the Astoria in the downtown east side of Vancouver, hammering drinks, and he would just randomly, start a conversation with somebody and come up with this. So obviously this is like a huge moment for him in his life. Yeah. And now if you don't think Louise is fucked up enough, listen to this story. On the evening of October 16th, 1967, Dave, who was the youngest Pickton kid, was just turned 16 and recently acquired his driver's license. He took his father's 1960s red pickup truck from the farm and headed east along Dominion Ave towards Burns Road in Coquitlam. It was about 7:40. Just ahead of him on the right side, one of the neighborhood kids, a 14-year-old boy named Tim Barrett, was walking down the road. How exactly it happened, no one can say, but Dave slammed the truck into the back of him. Dave knew right away that Tim was lying crumpled on the road and was badly hurt. So he raced home in a panic to tell his mom. Louise Pickton stopped what she was doing and hurried over to the place where the boy laid injured. After looking Tim over, she leaned down and rolled and then shoved the boy down a long fucking hill, walked down the hill. The kid was laying face down on the ground and stepped on the back of his head and fucking basically smothered him in the mud. So the kid fucking drowned in the mud. So listen, no, seriously, right? And then they took this, they took the truck into the fucking family mechanic, being like, "Hey, can you fucking fix this, please? Like, it's got a big dent in it.
Yeah,
it's right." And the mechanic's like, "It's a little bit weird. Like, you guys don't give a shit about any of the other vehicles. They all look like shit. Now you want me to clean this one?" Anyways, fixes the truck. A couple days later, they end up reporting that they found this fucking boy dead on the side of the road. And the key thing here is the boy fucking had multiple injuries, none of them fatal. He basically drowned. So Louise killed him. Right?
Yeah. And it's one of the things I had read is that like from that incident that the two boys were there and like kind of like watched and in horror, I guess, at that age of like your mom just being like, toss a kid's body down there. And then they were scolded. Both Dave and William were scolded, not for hitting the boy, but for damaging the truck.
So fucked up.
Right?
So fucked up.
So fucking messed up.
So the mechanic ends up fucking saying like, "Hey, listen, like I fixed this truck. It's weird. Maybe go look into the Picktons." And they do. And basically they hide the fact that the mother fucking finished the kid off. And Dave ends up getting like his license suspended for a few years. And that's literally all that comes out of this situation.
Yeah.
Fast forward a few years, Willy struggled in school, was put in special needs almost right away. He ends up getting expelled from school and then ends up like just finishing his fucking school career.
Hey, who needs school?
He ends up getting kicked out of school because he fucking brings one of those. Remember those old school nudie pens? Like those ones where you'd fucking dip it like the lady's got clothes. Yeah. She's got no clothes.
And then you flip it upside down and now she's naked.
Yeah. So he ends up getting pulled in the principal's office because he brought that pen to school. And then that was it. That was it for him in his school career. He didn't date because girls shunned him. His personal fucking hygiene was stuff of legend, supposedly. He was that fucking gross.
Like in the area, like, okay, so I'm sure, okay, so like just to say, like every town has like a
stinky guy.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Not even stinky, just a guy that everyone knows you can refer to. In my town, there's this giant 6'8" man. He's humongous, giant. And he walks around wearing like ladies' tights. Nothing wrong with that. You do whatever you want. But the hog is just wild. It's wild hogs out front, just waving around, dude. In those sheen, like those like comfy, like those comfy pajama tights that ladies wear. Well, he wears those, and it's swinging. Just, and he's walking. He just walks everywhere. So it's just big dick swinging everywhere he goes, front and center, and everyone knows. Like if you're ever like, oh, the tall, you ever see the tall, and they're like tall guy in the tights? And you're like, yeah, that guy. Yeah.
Free
so
Willy.
It's like the tight guy, right? We know that. Everyone knows the guy. So it's like, he was like
infamous for how bad he stunk.
Stinky guy.
Right?
Yeah, like, holy, this guy looks like a fucking rolled out of the mud.
Part of the reason why he stunk so bad, not only because he worked on the farm, is because he had a visceral fear of showers. Like, terrified of fucking showers, which is repulsive. But, like, here's the other thing, something to know about this family. Like, I get it. Farmers, no offense to farmers, like, it's a dirty job. They're dealing with a lot of livestock, everything like that. Like, the other farmers in the community called these people fucking, like their dad's name was Stinky Piggy. Like, they were all, these people were disgusting by all means. Right? Like, so yeah. After his parents died, Pickton and his siblings sold most of their property for urban development, reducing the farm to 6.5 acres. Pickton maintained a small-scale livestock operation at the farm. He also received a share of proceeds from the real estate transaction and was a partner with his brother Dave. So this is when stuff starts getting a little fucking dicey for them. So
when they're older here,
they're getting a little older.
I mean, we'll get back to that property development stuff there, but like they had a big farm, and a lot of that was developed into what is now like Port Coquitlam.
Yeah.
And I always kind of wondered, if they really looked when they were fucking developing these things.
Well, it makes you wonder
how much is hidden.
This sold way before he was arrested.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Before. So this is when the boys start getting into a little bit more greasy stuff. Like, so Willy is working his little small livestock operation, which, like, by all means, like, this guy is slaughtering 24 pigs a day.
Oh,
24 pigs a day. Like,
that's
fucking
He knew how to slaughter.
That's a whole lot of fucking pig murder, man. Like that's just a lot of murder in general. I don't for one person to do like, and apparently like he's
isn't that an interesting thing? Do you think there's a
100%? I know where you're going with this, and I 100%
right. This person who now is like constantly slaughtering animals, and who knows how he was doing it, if he was doing a humane way.
He wasn't.
It was, yeah. I think he was doing it close and personal, whispering in their ears as he was taking their lives. But does that like then start to be like? Does that thought creep in of like, well, I wonder what it would be like to do this to a human?
Well, but even just like, when you think about it, like, do you think it just, in my opinion, again, I'm not trying to bash anybody that like butchers, everything like, I get it. Like these are all, we need these.
You get cold to it though, for sure.
Like you're blurred, like between life and death, like it's become such a casual thing. And especially when you look at pigs, they're like, they have so many similarities to humans. Right? Believe it or not, they're so fucking intelligent, right? Like,
and more, yeah, buddy. I take off my clothes, you lather me up, oil me up, buddy. From a distance, I'm on all fours. You might not tell.
Let's go, baby.
Yeah, you might not tell. You might go, look at that big boy.
So anyway, so he's got this livestock operation going. Him and his brother Dave also start working pretty closely with the Hells Angels. They start kind of running chop shops on the property, right? And this is like starting out that relationship with the Hells Angels, right? And working with chop shops and okay, we're going to bring our vehicles in there. You're going to dismember them, take them apart. Well, what else do they do on the farm? Well, they dismember fucking pigs regularly. I wonder what else they could dismember. It makes me wonder. It's like, you gotta know that the Hells Angels have people that they need to get rid of. And
well, and when we say like they started a relationship with the Hells Angels, it was not William at all. Like William is still socially crippled. You know what I mean? Like he cannot, this guy is weird. He's still stinky piggy to this day. But like his brother Dave is like kind of the one that like leads us. Like let's put it this way. William wasn't cutting any real estate deals. No. He wasn't meeting realtors, doing any of this shit. That's all Dave.
Yeah. And like something really important to key into as well, I think, is the fact that, okay, so their parents are dead. They've sold off a lot of chunks of like huge amount of property to the city of to Coquitlam, to real estate developers. Not only that, this pig farm has been fucking profitable from the jump. Like these are wealthy people, and Willy is still living in squalor in a fucking trailer and dirt and pig and like stinky. Like he chooses to live this way. He enjoys living this way. He likes being gross and disgusting and dirty.
I just don't think he knows any different. I think he's I don't know. I think he has some sort of developmental issues where he's just, I don't know if it's some sort of disorder or something that causes him to be like
absolutely.
That. But it just doesn't fit because Dave is like personable. He's throwing lavish parties with the Hells Angels.
That's
right.
That leads to the Piggy Palace Good Time Society. Right. Yeah. So in 1966, the Pickton brothers started the Piggy Palace Good Time Society. It was a federally registered charity with an alleged mandate to raise funds for service organizations through events such as raves and wild parties featuring Vancouver's finest sex workers and gatherings in converted slaughterhouses on the farm. These events attract as many as 2,000 people, and members of the Hells Angels were known to frequent the farm. Subsequently, the Pickton brothers ignored growing legal pressure and held a 98 New Year's Eve party, which after was led to an injunction banning future parties.
Well, they're just holding huge fucking not registered business at all, just huge fucking wild parties basically that they're promoting like so like the city's like it'd be no different if you were like if you had an acre property and then you're holding like a fucking 2,000 person gathering. The city is going to have fucking issues with you running this,
like not to mention all the fucking prostitutes and drugs and fucking like just
and like unsavory people that you're bringing to these things that are coming in or helping organize.
Well, I know, like let's be honest, like you're having the Hells Angels at these parties, right? These people are already under the microscope. Police are following them on a regular basis, especially like in the fucking, it's not as, they're not as like, what's the word? I don't want to say infamous, but like you don't hear a lot about the Hells Angels in BC lately, but back in the fucking, the early 90s to like mid 2000s, man, like this, every major city in BC had a fucking clubhouse. Coquitlam's Coquitlam's still one of the only cities that still has an active clubhouse, right in the heart of fucking Coquitlam.
Because if those who don't know are like the Canadian government has it's gone right up to our appellant court, and they've actually started to seize all the Hells Angels properties, starting I think with the Kelowna property.
It's boarded up.
And a couple of they've just come in and said this is proceeds of crime, and seized it. And they're like, no, you can't have it anymore, and just take it. No, didn't pay for it, and they're going to resell it,
which is
to someone
fucking
else.
Prime real estate. Prime fucking real estate.
The crazy thing is because some people are like, well, is that overstepping? And like that, the appellant court was like looked into that, and it did go back and forth of being like, is this maybe a little bit of government overstep? But at the end of the day, they're like, this is proceeds of criminal activity. That's, it's not.
Wow.
So, and they're like, so
it is what it is.
Too bad, and took it.
Yeah.
But so it's kind of interesting that like I'm sure this clubhouse in Coquitlam is probably on the
it's right on the
now.
main drag in Coquitlam too. Like it's fucking huge. Like it's like they've got the fucking giant logo in the front yard, and they got I'm pretty sure they have a little flower arrangement with the Hells Angels colors. Like it's like there's no hiding this place, right? The one in Kelowna was a little bit more low key, right? We all knew where it was, but
you knew
stay the fuck away. But yeah, so that's kind of just to paint the current picture. They're kind of getting their hand, they're dipping their fingers in with a little bit of organized crime here and there.
Well, and let's hold on, not to mention they instantly, their nonprofit, they're like, yeah, bullshit, that's pulled. Your charity's a fucking bullshit front. Obviously it was laundering money. Obviously they were just using it to throw these parties and launder money. So they were like, basically, that's not allowed. You're not allowed to do that anymore. And if you have a future party, we will arrest every single person in attendance.
Yeah, so they closed down the Piggy Palace Good Time Society and just go straight to fucking stealing cars, fucking, and they're still all while producing their fucking glorious meat products, meat pies, all this other fucking lovely shit.
Nonstop.
Right? And I think
now he would process them. He would cut slaughter the cows, process them, put them in barrels, and then he'd send them to be processed.
No. So what he would do is he would take all the cartilage and all that type of shit the non-meat, and he would send it to a rendering factory, basically.
Yes.
Right? And then that's where they would take whatever that shit's left and turn it into gelatin, right? Yeah. And other stuff like you'd use in like Jello or makeups and all that type of shit. We'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah. Yes.
Because there's a pretty high chance that both me and Braden have consumed human flesh and everyone else in BC. So that's good.
Have you ever had Jello?
Yeah. So before, I think this is probably around the time we take a break, and right before we take our fucking, our little break here, I want to just share a fucking quote from Bricktop. Be wary of any man who keeps a pig farm. So what we're about to get into is going to be real fucked up.
We'll be right back. We're back.
So every once in a while, you have these, believe it or not, I'm going to say it, like this guy, not entirely the sharpest tool in the shed in many senses, but somewhat of a criminal mastermind. It's either the fact that these guys are a criminal mastermind or just like it's the perfect storm of situation, because we literally have a guy with the perfect place, the perfect skills, and then the perfect hunting ground, right? And we're going to get into his hunting ground. But like, it literally, like this, to me, is purely like Jack the Ripper vibes, right? Like just the perfect situation to go out and like take advantage of a population.
Of people. Like, dude, he was literally almost like predatory, going and being like, hey, you want to come like to prostitutes and stuff down the downtown east side that are addicted to drugs, alcohol, and being like, hey, you want to come back? I'll pay you some cash, and I've got drugs, alcohol. We can party. And they're just like,
well, it's not even it's a matter of like, it's a matter of them being like, no, like I need the drugs. Like it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter what this guy reeking of fucking pig shit dirty ass dude that looks like a rat. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like I need, like the addiction is so strong with these people that it's like, doesn't matter what I have to do. I need these drugs. And
there was, and like during this time, like around this time, there was a lot of, like when they closed down all the like mental health facilities and these people just kind of emptied in the streets and then kind of congregated on the downtown east side, there was like this level of like apathy towards the situation that starts where it's like with like law enforcement and government officials where it's just like, it's just a constant issue of drugs, addiction, petty crimes, that people just get sick of it. And it's like, they just stop, like, they're like, oh, another call from there. Yeah,
we're not going.
Whatever. Though that person's not going, they probably overdosed.
Well, it's gotten to a point now where it's basically like they've basically been like, okay, this is their area of town now. What happened? They free for all, do their thing. Whatever happens, happens. It is what it is. And just as long as we keep them within their area, it's
because there was open and heavy drug use at that time when it was like when they were actively arresting
it was
that kind of stuff. This was an area where it was totally just unlocked.
But like, again, like we keep talking really like about the downtown east side, and a lot of people don't even really know what it is who are listening right now. So we'll get into a little bit of history there. But at the same time too, like the apathy, it's not that I'm justifying it, but at the same time too, because being down there and working, because I worked down there before it was legal to use, openly use street drugs. Like
while you're talking about it, I'm just going to play a video.
You can't put all these people in jail. There's not enough room. What are you going to do? You can't arrest all these people, right? So I do understand to a certain, aspect as to why there's not as much policing down there, but let's get into what the downtown east side is. Vancouver's downtown east side is known for its high rates of poverty, homelessness, and open drug use and prostitution. In the late 1990s, 80% of the girls and women working in this sex trade came from outside Vancouver. Some had no contact with their families for years. Because of the marginalized lifestyles and transient habits of the victims and other people in the downtown east side, disappearances went unnoticed. People had no idea where these people, like people would come to the downtown east side because there was this strong community amongst drug users and homelessness, right? Like it was a place that was sought after by these populations. They would do whatever it takes to save up a little bit of money, hop on a bus and come down to the downtown east side.
Well, and I'll say the other thing along that is a lot of our jail system and correctional facilities are located like mainland, like in the Vancouver area, right? So like these people from outside communities would get shipped here to correctional facilities down in the mainland near Vancouver, and they would get released from there. And, they'd be offered a bus ticket home. And it's like, are you going to go back home to Prince George in the winter to go be homeless, or is it a better idea for you to just stay where it's a little milder?
Well, yeah, you can live like that's it. Like we would only have like even in Kelowna, we only lose a few people a year to exposure, right? That are living outside. Mm-hmm. Like you can pretty much live outside all year round in these areas. But yeah, like so you have this population that's just fucking like surging. It's swelling with new people daily. And so you can't keep track. You don't know where these people are. And not to mention, they come and they go as they please. Like they hop on a bus and then they're off to the Okanagan. They're off to, various areas. They go to the island. You don't know, right? So you have just this.
There's no way to keep track of them. They have no fixed address. They have no. They're in the wind.
Exactly. It's literally the perfect hunting ground, right? And to bring it back to Pickton, Pickton became familiar with the downtown east side through his visits to a rendering plant located there. So this is where he would dispose of.
He's like up against the glass. He's like, what are all these people? Like those are prostitutes, William. He's like, you can just pay them and they'll come.
Well, that's like that. That's exactly it, though, right? Like, so he's going to these rendering plants where he's taking the fucking the animal products that they can't use, they can't sell as meat. So the hair,
and dude,
cartilage.
back in this time, I will say this about this kind of time, they would come to the window and be like,
oh, 100%.
You want me to jump in with you?
Yeah, no, 100%.
Right? Like that was, I've seen less of that now. Like when I've been kind of in that
a
area,
few
but
Willy
I remember
Picktons
like
will
back then
kind of put a dent in that fucking action.
Yeah, we'll change that. But like I remember even driving there with like my dad, we were going to like the P&E or something. And you're
just like, nope, just at a red light. Red light, we're good. Thank you.
Yeah, red light, it's all good.
Like,
no, get away from the car, right?
Yeah,
So that was a regular thing. So I imagine for him, like going down there, like you take a drive down this road. Now all of a sudden there's these women, and you got to remember he's never.
It's probably his first time being touched by a woman.
Yeah, he's never been a ladies' man. Now all of a sudden these ladies are throwing themselves.
Well, and not to mention, right? Like he's a wealthy man, right? Considerably. He goes down. He starts frequenting the Astoria, which is like a historic fucking bar in downtown East Side. I fucking freak. Like that's a place that I think when I worked in Vancouver, that's a place you went to at least once a shift. Right? Whether it was a fight, an assault, an overdose, whatever, or intoxication, like we frequented that place. And so he would start going to the bars there and start picking up women because like you said, like he was not a very popular guy with the ladies. He stunk. He was weird. He was extremely off-putting, but all of a sudden he flashed a little cash and he was able to fucking,
Yeah, and drugs, right? He's obviously has connections with drugs with the HA and stuff. So he's got access to drugs, alcohol, and cash. Right? He's in no short order of any of those.
No, exactly. And then this is when we start getting into the fucking sudden, disappearances in the downtown east side of Vancouver. So in September 1978, Lillian Jean O'Dare. This is the earliest known missing date for potential victims of Willy Pickton. And then in 1999, we've got relatives of a growing list of missing women, along with advocates for sex trade workers, established the annual Valentine's Day Remembrance. So it was a walk that they'd go do. And like, these are people that are fucking pleading with the Vancouver police and the RCMP to say, hey, we need to look into these missing women that just all of a sudden are disappearing.
It's, you got to remember too, like in the sex trade, the girls a lot of times look out for each other. And so they would say, I'm on shift. Like I'll check in with you tomorrow. And then they wouldn't check in. And then they're gone.
And it's not even
right. And this isn't of the age in the internet where it's like they could text someone, this is where I'm going to be. It'd be like, yeah, well, I'm on shift. I will like let you know at 9, when I'm back. And they just would never turn up.
And these are
right?
people with families, with mothers and sisters, brothers, and that are like, where the fuck? Like, I understand that she lives she lives at risk. She chooses to live a lifestyle at risk. I understand that, but it's not fucking normal for her to not reach out whatsoever and just disappear off the fucking planet. Like a lot of these women have kids, right? Yeah. They have kids. They might not have custody of them, but they still get to see them and stuff. And they're just gone. And you're
in event and like
begging for them to investigate.
Because they're like, there's something going on. But like we talked about earlier, like there was such a growing like apathy of like, well, yeah, there's drugs going on. There's fucking crime going on. What do you think? That's the area. And that's kind of like, it was like what do you want us to do? We get 8 calls a day.
There's no crimes
shit.
if you don't investigate any, right? Everything's good.
Yeah.
No problem.
But I mean, that is part of the problem because it's like these 2 blocks, they weren't lawless, but like a lot of things that you would, if you were say on the corner of Kelowna at the time and you started doing drugs, you were getting picked up instantly. You were arrested. Right. And this was all just kind of left go. So there was like, you were having like little petty crime thefts and stuff on each other in that population wasn't really being dealt with.
So I'll say all of a sudden we have somebody that decided to fight back. On March 22nd, 1997, a woman.
Well, and just before that, just to bring this point before you get into this one, the people in this area now have been like, they're aware. The people in the downtown east side are aware, and they have believed, and they were pleading with police to investigate because they felt like someone or a group of people were taking people.
Well, they knew it.
Right?
People were disappearing at an exorbitant rate. Like it just didn't make sense.
Right. And even as early as this, as this incident we're about to talk about, Pickton was kind of being circulated as like, just be cautious, be careful if this guy's right?
Yeah, well,
we're hearing things.
It's not exactly like, they definitely didn't have him fingerprinted yet. Like, they're not like, oh, we know that it's him. They had lists of Johns that they're like, stay the fuck away from these guys. They're violent, whatever. But this is the first little taste that we get, like, oh, maybe this guy's a fucking psychopath. So on March 22nd, 1997, Pickton, this woman is unnamed at this point in time, picks up a woman at the Astoria bar, hops in the vehicle. Right away, she kind of knew things were off because when she hopped in this vehicle, she realized that there's no door handles on the passenger side of the vehicle, which is a big fucking like, oh my God. Didn't Dahmer do that too?
I think so.
Yeah, like that's, holy fuck. So he brings her back to the farm. Her spidey sense is fucking tickling. She's like, hey, like something's wrong.
Which is so fucked up to think, because that's such a fucked up thing to think, because that means like, at some point during this time, he was picking up women who were then getting the creeps and jumping out of the car. And he went, I can't have that anymore.
No. So he fucking remedied the problem.
It's so fucking creepy.
So she's stuck up the farm, whether she's like, listen, this guy's a murderer, or she's like, this place is fucking disgusting. There's shit everywhere and it's creepy. I want to get the fuck out of here. Who's to say?
Probably all of that is going through her head.
Right? So she makes up an excuse. She's like, I need to use your phone really quick. I need to let, I think she had a boyfriend at the time. I need to let him know that where I am. I need to know where whatever. Pickton's like, yeah, fill your boots. And as she's on the phone, she's dialing the phone. He comes up behind her and slaps a fucking handcuff on her wrist. Right? Yeah. Struggle ensues. He only gets the handcuff around one of her wrists. She fights back. She runs to the kitchen and grabs a fucking kitchen knife. Right? And then, the Pickton looks at her and says, that's not a knife. This is a knife. Pulls out a bigger knife, and these two begin to have a fucking sword fight.
A fucking legit knife
Literally.
fight. They're just shanking each other nonstop.
Right? And
legit, both of them.
Believe it or not, our girl fucking wins. I'm pretty sure she gets him in the neck. She gets him in the chest. She's cut up too.
And, he gets him in the abdomen.
Yeah. So they get in this knife fight. She ends up fucking stabbing him, incapacitating him, runs out the front door. The woman ran down the road, waved down a car whose occupants then called an ambulance. She was taken to the RCH, Royal Columbian Hospital in New West. And this is where fucking shit gets crazy to me. This is just fucking nuts. So while the woman was undergoing emergency surgery, Pickton was brought into the same hospital. I guess he went into Eagle Ridge, which is more of like an urgent care minor, situation, hospital. They treat the minor wounds. He walks in. I've working down there. I've brought people in the ambulance, and they've been like, "Get the fuck out of here! Like, people are way too sick. Bring them to RCH." So I know exactly what happened. They're like, "Hey, this guy needs to go to RCH." So ambulance comes, picks up Pickton, brings him to RCH. So they're doing emergency surgery on his victim, right? They bring him in, start working on him. One of the nurses is going through his stuff, ends up finding a pair of keys in his pocket. They look at the keys and they're like, that's weird. This looks like handcuff keys. Well, our patient who's currently receiving emergency surgery in the trauma bay next to this fucking guy
has a handcuff
on her. So they go and they use the fucking keys on those handcuffs and they fucking release.
Well, the thing is, if anyone knows, if you're a handcuff connoisseur like myself, you know that basically there's a universal handcuff key. So it's not.
Okay.
So any handcuff key.
Yeah, but aren't the handcuffs you normally use like fucking pink and fuzzy or like leopard print or?
Yeah, they still use the same key though.
All right, that's fair.
It's all the same key.
Okay.
So like I said, lots of people you can buy them. You can buy those handcuff keys anywhere. They're universally they'll unlock unless there's a summer special. But it's like but I will say when you're clearing the odds of that you have two people with knife wounds and then one has handcuffs, the other has handcuff keys. You are correct 99.9% of the time to say. This is
even the fucking Dudley Do-Rights here in the RCMP that haven't been able to figure this shit out yet are like, ugh.
Well, if only they could.
Actually, you know what? It was a fucking nurse that's the one that figured it out. But Pickton was arrested and charged with attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon, and forcible confinement. The charges were stayed and eventually dropped because the woman, whose name was placed under the protection of the publication ban by the courts, was not considered a competent witness due to drug addiction.
So she couldn't.
Fucked.
So more than likely what happened is they had some sort of pre-trial conference where they bring in all the witness and they kind of run through the case, is what normally happens in like Canadian courts. And more than likely at this conference, again, you have to remember, Pickton has access to money, tons of cash. This girl comes up, and I guarantee you, the second she walked in the court, everyone was probably like, "Oh."
Well, like you think about it too, like the fact that like this woman's got a drug addiction, right? It's the only reason she's in the fucking predicament she's in is because she's got this deadly addiction. So she put herself in this position with this piece of shit of a fucking vile human being because she's got an addiction. Then she gets the guy tries to murder her basically, right? And you're already an addict because you probably have PTSD from you're growing up, you're probably molested, horrible things happen to you, maybe minutes. What are you going to fucking do when you get out of this to supplement these fucking awful, the awful things that you've been doing? Of course you're going to go back and hit the fucking needle, right? Like, can you blame this woman? Like
No,
fuck,
not at all.
Man.
It's the crazy thing is like, so he was saying that like this lady basically attacked him. Like he was an innocent driving, saw this woman who seemed to be in distress, picked her up. She was crazy.
Well,
just started
he admitted
to
picking her up for prostitution.
Well, afterwards,
yes, yeah.
He said he picked up a hitchhiker and she offered the services, and he was like, "Well, if you're offering,
ass, gas, or grass, buddy."
Where then she tried to attack him, and then he tried to fight her back and subdue her with the handcuffs to call authorities. And they were just like, "Okay,
fucking dipshits."
Seems to add up.
Where's Ron Pond when you need him? What's he doing this time period? Let's get him into the fucking Vancouver, like clean the streets up.
She can't stand trial. Like, so they're like, the Crown is probably looking at this and being like, this lady is just not coherent enough or whatever. Whatever the reason would be is that they thought on the grounds of probability, there was not a high likelihood of conviction to go through this trial. So they stayed the charges. They're like,
supposedly at this point in time when they brought him in for interrogation, the boots he was wearing had fucking the DNA of 3 other women on them. Like, think about, oh God. And then, okay, so insult injury. The Vancouver police refused.
But so like, he's known by the police. He's been in police. He's gone through the system because they have him for attempt murder.
Oh, they got that. They got his brother for a few counts of sexual assault as well. His brother, massive piece of shit. So the Vancouver police refused to say that a serial killer was at work or even considered that the missing women were dead. There were no bodies to warrant an investigation that would be a stain on police resources.
What a fucking time, man. That is honestly, that time of if there's not a body, there's not a crime is so fucking wild to me. And I'm so happy that they've changed that. Based on evidence, like that's fucking crazy to me. If you know people, like if you're like, well, we have all this evidence to point that this guy's getting rid of these bodies,
but
we can't find
Jack
bodies,
the Dipper
so there's no crime.
In Austin. We do have bodies floating up in the fucking, and a ridiculous amount of fucking bodies within the same age ranges float in the lake, and no arrests. No, there's no serial killer. It's just people are getting drunk and falling in the lake. Anyways.
Yeah.
So June 1997, Helen Hallmark reported missing. September 1998, Vancouver police finally set up a team to review files as many as 40 women are fucking reported missing. 40. We found, well, pal, we better start looking around here, hey?
Yeah.
What are we going to do?
It's getting to 40. Now, we said once it hits 40, we'll do something.
1998, Jacqueline McDonald reported missing. In early 1999, Bill Hiscox, who worked for the Picktons, informed the RCMP that Lisa Yells, a close friend of Pickton. So Lisa Yells was kind of this woman that Pickton befriended. He would bring her up to the farm. She'd help clean his apartment. They kind of had like this, they had a really close, it wasn't a sexual relationship or anything like that.
I think she felt bad for him. I think she felt bad because I think she was from everything I've looked into, she was like a compassionate person and was thought maybe Pickton himself was a vulnerable person.
Totally.
Based on just how he lived his life. And, maybe there was a little bit of that, knowing that he has that kind of cash.
Oh yeah.
Like the kind of money and sons he did, maybe there was some ulterior motives. I don't know, but she was definitely just helping him, not just with day-to-day life.
So supposedly Yells and him had a falling out. And after the falling out, I wonder why they had a falling out. Yeld told Hiscox that she had seen women's clothing, purses, and identification papers at the pig farm. Hiscox believed they were the property of the missing women. Police questioned Yeld, but she was uncooperative. It was the second time Hiscox had contacted police about his suspicions, but they could not obtain a search warrant based on hearsay evidence.
It's fucking wild.
Stupid.
So you have someone being like, hey, and you think based on the circumstance, you're like, hey, this is that same guy who fucking just a few years earlier was fucking knife fighting with that prostitute.
Yeah, but that was a one-time thing. Old Willy's a nice guy. We saw him. He's, he's a pig farmer. He's got great meat pies, eh? Threw great parties.
I said prostitute.
Right? In the spring of 1999, an informant told the Vancouver police that a single mother and drug addict named Lynn Elsing had seen a woman's body hanging in Pickton slaughterhouse. When questioned by the police, Elsing initially denied the story. Only much later did she admit that on the 20th of March, she had in fact seen the body. She did not report it because she feared Pickton and was worried that he'd lash out on her and also depended on him for drug money.
So as the story goes, like Pickton, is this the one where Pickton brought her in and showed her? She's
hanging out with Pickton, having a good time. She ends up helping because at this point in time, like we talked about earlier, the women are the sex workers in the downtown east side are starting to band together, right? They're like, okay, there's a fucking predator out there. There's so many of us going missing. So what Pickton did, the fucking son of a bitch, he ends up getting these women like Yelds and Elsing. He befriends them and is like, hey, can you help me? He gets some drugs, money, whatever. And then he takes them down to the downtown east side. He's like, can you help me pick up these girls? Because they're starting to get weary. They don't like, they don't like strange men right now because it's unsafe. Would you help me and just vouch for me and tell them that I'm a nice guy? So the two of them go out, they pick up a sex worker. They bring him back to fucking Pickton's farm. She ends up using down, I'm assuming, because she goes down, passes out for a while. She ends up waking up and she looks around. She can't find Pickton. She can't find the sex worker that they had brought home together. She ends up noticing in one of the slaughterhouses that there's, like the creepy fucking bulbs that hang from a wire.
Yeah.
You can kind of see one just dangling, right? And she's like, weird. So she's like yelling like, Willy, Willy, goes and looks in the slaughterhouse. And hanging from the chains, just like the fucking thing, like we'll touch on this, but the exact same way that people slaughter pigs, right? Like you break the ankle joints, right? And then you hang them up, right? So they're just hanging by the tendons in this exact same way this woman is hanging from a chain. And Willie just looks at her and like shakes his head, doesn't say a fucking word. And she runs out. Oh, man.
And you would think that he is dead caught now. Dead caught. There would be not a single other victim after this.
She's too terrified to fucking say anything. Because in 2001, Patricia Johnson, last seen downtown east side, fucking disappears. Heather Bottomley as well in the same year, reported missing.
Well, you also missed the three, Georgina, Brenda, and Jennifer in 99.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Georgina Papin, Brenda Wolf, and Jennifer Fermi. So 99, that's fucking, wow. That's 499. That's 3, Serena Abbotsway. Yep.
Vancouver police are offering $100,000 reward for information, even though people for years have been like, something's happening. Right?
Yeah. Like they've been pounding the table for fucking how long?
Yeah.
Right. Like it's just, so we have all these people disappearing. We have no bodies like to account for. Right. And like, you want to get into a little bit of the grossness before we fucking get into the,
Yeah, him getting picked up.
So like we talked about, he's been frequenting these rendering plants, right? Like, which is kind of one of the perfect ways to dispose of these bodies when you think about it. So the remains sent to these rendering plants, they were mixed in with parts of the animals that weren't being used, right? So like the hair, the fucking cartilage, all that type of stuff. And this is exactly, so he's dicing up these bodies and putting them in with the fucking body, the animal parts that he's sending to these fucking rendering plants, which means like, think about that. Human hair, bones are inside these. like there is a really good chance that the gelatin used for candy and makeup and fucking Jell-O and stuff in BC contained human parts.
Yeah.
Like, without a doubt. Like, he admits to it. He's like, it's the perfect way to get rid of the bodies. Right? Not to mention the fucking meat pies.
Yeah.
Like, the meat products that they produced. Like, they put out a thing being like, if you fucking got meat from the Pickton's farm, there is a chance that you consumed human flesh. Right?
Right? Like, because they were selling that too. They were selling meat products.
And then you want to fucking, here, I'm going to get even weirder on it. You want to get real weird? You want to get super weird?
Yeah.
Speculation? Get a little crazy?
Yeah.
So there is fairly strong evidence that Parkinson's disease is caused by a prion or has prion-like mechanisms, right? Which, according to this hypothesis, the metabolism of gut bacteria randomly produces a misfolded protein, maybe as little as 1 molecule of a protein. If the misfolded protein is absorbed into the vagus nerve, it replicates and spreads to the brain, converting every functional molecule of the alpha synuclein it touches to an evil enzyme that does nothing but copy itself. So you got these prions that are keep copying themselves.
Yeah.
This theory that I pulled that from one of my old textbooks. I read a theory basically that Parkinson's disease can be caused by prions, which you can be exposed to by consuming human flesh. At the time of Pickton's murders, there was a TV show filming in the same location as the farm. The show was called Leo and Me. Years later, like this is an infamous situation. Years later, one actor and 3 crew members were all diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. 4 people in the same show. And Parkinson's disease is like 1 in 300, okay?
Yeah.
So the theory is that they all may have consumed some of Pickton's fucking meat pies or meat products from the farm and accidentally became exposed to the prions. Do you know who the actor is? Canadian legend, Michael J. Fox. Isn't that fucking wild. Crazy?
Yeah, that is fucking crazy. That is a crazy, like, 7 degrees of separation.
Right?
You know what I mean?
It gets weird.
That's an interesting, it'd be like, I know that there's a study on that and that's a hypothesis, but I'm like, wouldn't that be crazy if that you notice there's like a spike in Parkinson's in...
Well, Canada's got crazy high levels of Parkinson's.
Yeah.
It's weird. And MS for whatever reason.
Weird. Fucking too much human meat byproducts here.
Braden, tell us about finally what happens to this motherfucker, please. Like, give us some goodness.
I mean, after fucking years and years, like, I mean, he goes on to
fucking reign of terror, man. Literally a reign of terror.
Dude, it's like all the way up into 2001, he's still on the prowl, active, and
getting sloppy though. Women. Getting fucking sloppy all of a sudden.
Well, I would argue that he was always sloppy. There was just like an inability or unwillingness of willingness to prosecute or to like go after him for whatever reason. Maybe it was the fact that like, a little bit of deep pockets, maybe the connections with the Hells Angels kind of muddied things up.
There was supposedly at the Piggy Palace, there weren't just Hells Angels at these fucking parties. There was also a lot of political figures, fucking off-duty police officers, that's not just speculation.
Well, and you would think that like after all this information, it's like they finally are just like, okay, enough's enough. We know this guy's picking up these women. Like that's not the case. They almost fucking fall backwards into this discovery some fucking how, even though it's been like handed to them on a platter for years. One of their like the RCMP are like, they have a task force. The Vancouver Police and
Project
RCMP
Even-Handed
are working together. Yeah. And so they're working together kind of like to investigate this kind of stuff. And a former employee, Scott Chubb, basically informs the RCMP that he's personally seen illegal guns at the Pickton trailer home and that like, and like he would testify to that, which then finally allows the RCMP and the Vancouver Police to obtain a search warrant for the guns for guns.
Nothing to do with missing women. Literally just
nothing
firearms.
to do. And I honestly, I would like to see the documents. I don't, because they say now like, oh yeah, we were also looking into this, but I'm like, you got to remember these people have strong ties with the Hells Angels at this time and running like, puppet charity things. And it's like these guns things, this happens all the time where like they'll get a gun cache for the Hells Angels, and all of a sudden you'll just see a sweep and it'll be on the news. Hey, we recovered all these guns from this operation, shut it down. Right. And I kind of feel like that's what this was. They're like, oh, perfect. Let's go. We'll search warrant. We'll get these guns and, we'll put a nice, good ad on the Vancouver Sun tomorrow.
We'll be posing in front of the guns.
Yeah. So this is February 2002. On February 5th, officers in task force raid the pig farm. They find the guns, and all of a sudden, as they're, they're like, oh, guns, boom, are right here, like they said they'd be. And as they're searching the home, all of a sudden they start seeing all these items, jewelry, IDs,
an inhaler,
clothing, hair.
The big thing
of all these missing women.
The big thing that they found was the inhaler, because it had the victim's prescription on it. They saw the name. They're like, that's one of the women that's been missing.
Yeah. So the craziest thing is they pick him up. Pickton's instantly arrested. He's arrested on gun charges and weapon charges. He's released right away on bail. He's told like, hey, listen, you're not allowed to go back to the pig farm. That's one of he has to stay away because now, they have grounds for further search because they're like, okay, we have some items of these missing women. There's nothing to substantiate any crime, but like we're going to get a second warrant now to really comb through everything in this property. And they find handcuffs. They find knives, shoes, clothes, the inhaler, like you said. And then as they start to search the grounds, they start to find remains of some of the women. They find jawbones, skulls, human hands and feet.
Well, they found
buried.
the one skull they found a skull with their woman's hands jammed into the skull. Like
into the skull.
What the fuck? They found a fucking 357 or was it a 357 Magnum or was it the 22? Either way, they found a revolver with a fucking dildo attached to the fucking end of it. Yeah. Whether it's used as like a suppressor or I don't know what the fuck, like.
Yeah. It's really messed up. And Pickton himself said that that the dildo was to be used as a makeshift suppressor, although it did have victims' DNA on it. So, which means that it was used. It was used on them.
It was also had some of his DNA on it too, though. But
yeah, so why after a while you're like, am I gonna get caught? It's terrible. Sorry. Yeah. I mean, dude, the absolute horror scene. Like everywhere they look, the motorhome, everything. It's like they're finding DNA of blood.
They found 2,000 DNA samples. Like this is such dude. This was a $70 million investigation. They brought archaeologists in. They fucking combed every fucking inch of the property that still remained in his name, which is important to fucking.
Dude, it's fucking wild. Like honestly, everywhere they look, there's evidence that he's been killing people.
Yeah, wow.
Literally everywhere on the property,
26 pages,
which raises so many questions for me because I'm like, all this stuff is just out in the open, and we know that so many people frequent this property. It's Hells Angels. They're having big parties. And there's all this evidence just laying around. There's blood splatter, right? And I guess people just assumed it's pig because the places was just so filthy.
I don't know though, because
so Pickton's.
We'll get into that after. Actually, let's get into a little wildness later.
He's instantly repicked up. I think he was only charged with 2, and that gets up. He gets in.
Goes from 2 to 6.
They have 26 confirmed women, DNA of women, like missing, murdered women. And they initially charge him with 2, and I think they up that to 6, and they arrest him. And they're kind of going to do this big operation. They pick him up, and they bring him to jail in Surrey, and they have an undercover operator in the cell that's going to be a cellmate, and like in hopes of that,
got the video.
He's going to just kind of spill the beans on what's happening. Literally, the first thing this guy does when he gets in there is just jerks off. Like the first thing he does.
How fucked up is that?
Right.
Literally the first thing that he does when he gets into jail. Like, you got to be in a calm state of mind. Like, you just got picked up. You're probably going to jail for the rest of your life. First thing you want to do is rub one out. Like,
Yeah,
what the
you're
f-
just like,
in front of some rando.
But then he like in talking with the RCMP, he kind of like he basically that's where he does the famous statement of like, yeah, I've got 49. It's too bad I wanted to make it to 50.
Yeah, the undercover fucking cop that's in the jail cell with him. He just sits there and brags. Like the cop.
Yeah.
Like I put the video in there, but I don't know if it's a little bit long. But
we can't play the audio.
the fucking
That's the problem.
the cop doesn't even like have to prod. Like Pickton's bragging. He's sitting there, and that's where he says he's like, yeah, I only got 49. I wish I would have got the opportunity to get to 50. Like, and then he brags, and he's like, and then I had the perfect way. I did it perfectly, and the cop's just like, well, what do you mean? Like you throw him in the ocean? Like that seems like the perfect way to me. And he's like, no, the rendering plant.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, when you think about that, it's like, okay, how many bodies were sent to the rendering plant that we have no evidence of now?
Yeah.
Right. Like he could have been getting rid of entire bodies in those barrels.
So the criminal trial of Pickton was like, the biggest trial in British Columbia, probably
Canadian history.
It like absolutely insane, like investigation, everything, $70 million. The defense was going like, so he was they originally just tried on 6 counts of first degree murder. So then, a lot of these 6 women had gunshot wounds. So like they kind of assumed that they were dead killed by gunshot wounds. The defense was saying that like, hey, there's no evidence to point that this was William. Like he may have been involved, but there was other people. There was other parties that were pulling the trigger and killing these women, right? He was just disposing. That was what he was doing, was just disposing.
Which like at the same time, part of me thinks that, yeah, that was part of it. They were working closely with the Hells Angels. There was a point in time where his brother randomly kicked him off the property, was like, nah, get the fuck out of here. And it makes me wonder, it's like, did the brother walk in and find out what he was doing and then make a conscious decision being like, hey, maybe my brother has a set of skills that we can make some money off of?
Yeah.
Right?
So like the trial lasted for weeks. It was a jury trial, which is, I mean, wild to me that like they would, because Robert would have got to elect what he wanted to do. So to pick a jury, like you're going to have 12 people decide on this kind of horrendous scenes. And like, honestly, some of the scenes and like evidence and shit that was shown to the jurors was so fucking disturbing that they would have to take breaks because it was just too much to like look at.
Like we're talking like worse than a Rob Zombie movie.
Yeah.
Like fucking gruesome as fuck.
And, so like at the end of the trial, jurors go to deliberation and like tough, man. They were like deliberating for like 5 or 6 days. When they were brought back in and like they had questions for the judge and stuff, the judge is like, listen, if you think this person pulled the trigger and killed these women, you have to find him guilty. That's the basis of one of the questions that came up. And then the next day, the judge brought them back in and he went, you know what? Also, if you believe that, you can also find him guilty. If you don't believe he pulled the trigger, but you believe he was like a willing participant, you can find him guilty. And like almost right away after that, they come back with a guilty verdict on all 6 counts.
I don't care. Finally, they're probably like, we got to make up for lost time.
Yeah.
We fucked this up. We need this guy in jail.
So 25, he gets sentenced to 25 years. His lawyers right away are saying that last comment that the judge gave to the jury kind of like gave them an out of like, well, you can just find him guilty kind of anyways. You know what I mean?
As you fucking should.
That's what they did.
As you fucking should.
So they were like, so the defense was like, okay, we're appealing that. We want a new trial. Now, this is where I fucking love this from the Crown prosecutors. They were like, yeah, you know what? You're appealing. We're also appealing the case because we want a new trial with all 26 counts on it. So it's basically like, fuck, you've just been found guilty on 6. If you appeal it and that's granted, then the Crown is going to get granted the new trial. They're actually going to try on all 26. So now instead of having to just defend those 6, you're going to have to try to defend another 20 on top of that. So it goes right up to the Court of Appeal in Canada, and they say to Pickton's lawyer, like, no, there's no error. Like maybe the judge erred, but like it wasn't enough to grant a new trial. So they fucking strike that down. Conviction stays. But they do grant the appeal from the Crown prosecutors to get a new trial for all 26. But at that point in time, now that the Crown knows that, like, hey, we got him on the 6th.
Dead to rights.
He's never getting out. He's never gonna get out on the parole. No one's gonna release him. Why cause any more pain and suffering to retry this, to do all this, to maybe mess it up, right? Mm-hmm. You got him. So they release a statement saying they're not going to go after the other 20 charges.
Which I do just gonna sympathize with the victims' families, because I'm sure they kind of wanted, a little
but I
bit
think
of justice,
the outcome doesn't change. And that's the thing with Canada. It's not like you add another 100 years to this guy's sentence. He's got the max.
He's still
so it's like
25.
The risk reward ratio, it's like, you know what, maybe you wanted to justice for your specific family member, but it's like you also run the risk of something happening in that trial. Maybe they go judge alone and there's some sort of error of law, or maybe one of the searches wasn't good and he gets off on all of them. Right?
Could you fucking imagine?
I just don't think that's a risk anyone was willing to take based on, like, if this guy's out there, he's going to do this. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of where it came from.
100%. There's no rehabilitating this shit. There's just nothing. No. There's no fucking way.
Now, the other thing interesting for me is that, like, we've kind of touched on a bit, like with Hell's Angels and Dave. It's like, I've always kind of thought that, based on like what we know about William Pickton, like, yeah, he was messed up, but like he wasn't. I always kind of assumed, and you brought up a good point, that like maybe Dave kind of was like, hey, you can do this. Because I did kind of feel like, I don't feel like Robert would have put this together. What I think happened is I think they were doing this. I think they were doing this for the HA. And I think Robert was just their lackey. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like they're like, hey, this is probably taking advantage
of some of the situations as well.
Yeah. But then what I think he started doing is, because he knew this is what was going on and they were doing this, I think then he was like, oh, I could probably do this on my own too. Right. And he started like mixing it, like doing his stuff by himself.
Yeah.
And getting sloppy.
It's
but
bizarre to me that he randomly got turfed off the fucking property for that short period of time.
Yeah.
Like, what could he have done to, like, him and his brother were so close growing up.
Yeah.
Right. And then he just gets booted off, and then all of a sudden brother just brings it back on. And then I don't know. It's fucking weird. And then Dave, multiple sexual assault accounts. Okay. Now, like firsthand, like in the Wish shelter, all the like the women's shelters, all this in the downtown east side, they all have fucking posters in there of Dave fucking Pickton warning you about him. His brother. I've seen them firsthand being like, stay the fuck away from this guy. And like, I've talked to a lot of fucking
He's on the prowl.
that these women believe that he does the exact same thing that his brother was doing.
Right. And the thing is like that dude, it's a very strong possibility. And if you look at today's climate,
perfect.
It's 1,000 times worse, man. The opportunity, and we're at that level of apathy again, where it's like there's thousands, hundreds of calls a day for that area, for these people sprawling everywhere. It's just too much. Well,
they're actively buying these people bus tickets out of town to reduce the populations.
Yeah. Right? Like, and it's like there's no one keeping track of them again. It's pandemonium. There's too many. And I think we're going to see in the next 5-6 years, I think we're going to see that there's probably someone active right now doing something very similar.
Copycat or Dave or I don't know.
Yeah.
Fucking awful, man.
Yeah, it'd be, but terrifying little bit of Canadian history. The fact that they had him dead to rights, man. In 91 having a knife fight, and this lady, it was like, he was trying to murder me.
And 10 years later.
And then 10 years later they catch him. Like, I'm like, no one on any kind of team was like, hey, maybe we should keep an eye on this guy. This is kind of weird. People have been saying these vulnerable women have gone missing, and this guy had one and was in a knife fight.
But he used to draw up antifreeze and inject these women with it.
Yeah.
Like literally a syringe full of antifreeze and fucking inject them with it.
Yeah.
Like,
kill them.
You know something bizarre about that though? You know what the antidote for antifreeze is?
Alcohol.
Yeah. Fucking vodka. It's vodka.
Vodka.
Yeah.
And
give you a vodka IV.
You have to keep the liver so busy that you pass the antifreeze.
Yeah. How did you know that?
Don't worry about
That's
it.
hilarious. Jesus.
Told you I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
I saw a fucking interview with someone talking about veterinarians.
Yeah.
And when dogs drink antifreeze,
that's how you treat them.
They get the dog drunk.
Yeah.
That's the only way to save the dog.
That's crazy. Well, vodka specifically, but
yeah, vodka specifically.
Yeah.
But terrifying. I'm so happy that this guy
biggest blemish in Canadian
up.
history, other than
dude, it's
residential
fucking,
schools and like
this one's just such a
because we could have stopped
a blunder on law enforcement and prosecutors. Like you had someone and you didn't even scratch the surface. Like when you had the evidence 10 years earlier that this was possibly going on, and then he went on to kill probably the majority of his victims after that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know. I bet you he was
to
active a lot earlier, to be honest with you.
I think so too. Yeah. I think those are his, but I think he was a part, or because he even said they had evidence of other people. They just didn't know. They just had him dead to rights.
Yep.
Right. And he even said he wasn't the one that was shooting these women.
It doesn't fit him. Right? It doesn't fit his MO shooting them. He slaughtered them the same way he slaughtered pigs.
Yes.
And because that's what he knew. He didn't, so that's interesting to me as well.
I think he maybe even took the fall. Like, cause it's so weird that it's like you get in there and you just start bragging about this stuff. Unless you were like, you're caught and you're just covering for someone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Well, him and his brother are really close.
But maybe that was like a thing he thought. Like if you ever get pinched, you have to say this was you.
Yeah. I mean,
right? Like
I think he would do that for his brother. His brother was his only fucking friend.
Yeah. Interesting. But Dave Pickton still is in that area.
Crazy.
So, it's crazy. He's not eligible for parole for 25 years. He'll never get it.
Fucking
he'll spend his life in. It's
fucking Canada, man. I would have. Yeah. Is there any reforming decapitating somebody and fucking eating their flesh?
Yeah.
That guy was out in how many years?
Dude, that'll be the next Daddies and Baddies.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that guy.
Yeah, that's fair.
We'll talk about that guy. Because that's an exception to the rule. And we'll specifically talk about that on the next Daddies and Baddies, because a lot of times in Canada, we have a not criminally responsible. It's called NCR. And then usually what that means is, like we have lighter sentences than the States, but if you're found not criminally responsible, you could go into one of these like forensic hospitals, and if they can't sort out your meds and they can't balance you out, you never get out. There's no parole board, there's no nothing. So a lot of the times when these people are, and it's not given lightly, a lot of these times these people are, it's basically a life sentence without chance of parole when they get an NCR. But people don't like the term not criminally responsible because it kind of, I guess it alludes that they had no responsibility in it, and that upsets victims' families. But a lot of the time that's a harsher sentence than anything else we can give in Canada. But sometimes we'll talk about the exception to the rule on the next Daddies and Baddies on Patreon only. Andrew, do you have a theorite of the week? I got one.
Let's hear it.
Good to have it. This week's theorite, because dude, he's been just donating to the show so much, jumping on socials, being active during the lives. Jacob Jacoby.
Oh yeah, that guy's a fucking beauty.
Yeah, and I felt bad because he was like, "Wait, you didn't say my name on the last live." I couldn't. I had to turn off the alerts because we were interviewing someone. I didn't want to pop up. Yeah, I saw them. We appreciate it. So you were a theory of the week. Thanks for helping the show.
Fucking right.
Also, we got some new thing. You missed it Andrew, duds of the week.
Duds of the week. When did that start?
Fucking duds of the week where we fucking land. Dude, we released a new logo.
Yeah.
And if you were anyone that had any kind of one of these comments, meh, I don't like it.
Dud of the week.
The color is just not for me and my taste. Go fuck yourself. You fucking loser. If you're like, you know what? I don't prefer the color red. Fuck you.
I got the concerns with the red though. I think it needed an outline. I think I needed a border. I think it would make it pop more. I'm going to be honest with you.
Did you not hear what I just said? Fuck.
Yeah. Hey, it wouldn't be my first time being a dud of the week.
We can add to that.
Yeah,
but anyone who jumped on there to like fucking
was that on the live?
Negative,
people fucking
no. People are like on the post and stuff.
Oh.
Like, meh. I prefer fucking this or that.
I've been off the socials for a bit. Therapeutic.
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah, well, it's been mostly pretty good.
Chicken soup for the soul, buddy.
So if that sounds like you, sorry, you're dud of the week. Be more positive. You can
constructive criticism.
You can construct. Yeah, I like the new logo.
Construct my ass.
You know what I think would be nice? A harder black line around the lettering. Sure, hey, that's nice. That's constructive. Not poo poo. What do? You know what? I should start looking at these people who make these comments and finding something they do and just shitting on it.
Well, that's what that's what you used to do to everybody.
Yeah.
I remember. King Troll.
I'm getting to taste my own medicine is what you're saying?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's good.
This week's Patreon supporters, if you're not on Patreon, patreon.com/alien theorist theorizing. Tons of good stuff, including Daddies and Baddies. We got 4 episodes out, 5 coming back out. And as we always say at the end of these things, keep those eyes on the skies.